All right, welcome back, Raider Nation, to Silver and Black Today, an Odyssey Sports original podcast. Also, the video brought to you tonight, our post-game video from our friends at BetUS. In fact, if you want to go bet at BetUS, guess what? We're going to give you a special deal. That's right. YouTube 150 is the promo code, 150% sign-up bonus up to $2,000. Yeah, free money. Let's do it. YouTube 150 is the code from our good buddies at BetUS. Scott Gulbransen back with you, along with my good friend Murf from Raiders Fan Radio. Talk about the Raiders' 29-19 loss to the Denver Broncos at home, and the Raiders' losing streak now hits 7 games. But there were some things to be, I think, excited about, and some positives, if you may. I know some of you won't see that, and everybody's sort of in that, hey, let's get a high draft pick mode, and so you're not necessarily wanting the Raiders to win. Some of you, most of you, though, look, you want the Raiders to win no matter what. And guess what? At times, this team looked pretty good tonight, but again, self-destruct in so many ways, and we're going to get into that as well. Do us a favor, make sure you subscribe to the podcast wherever you get your audio, and also do us a favor, rate and review. And now I bring in my friend Murf from Raiders Fan Radio for the Voice of the Fan segment. And Murf, I'll tell you what, this Raiders team played hard throughout. There's no question, and I think they played better for the most part. On defense, I saw, again, improved tackling over the last few games, actually. A lot less missed tackles. Was there mistakes? Of course there was. They were down a lot of bodies on the defensive side. On offense, kind of ran into the same juggernaut. We saw some things go better. Amir Abdullah had a nice little game there as well. Gardner Minshew at times looked okay, but then towards the end, self-destructed before he got hurt. And that offensive line at times also looked good. But overall, give me your reaction. I know the expectations were low. I watched your show from Wednesday and heard your conversation with Jeff and Michelle. But when you look at this game, you just want your team to come out and show some fight, and they certainly did that.
Yeah, I mean, a 10-point loss is never great, Scott, but I mean, there were definitely some things to be encouraged about going in and coming out of this football game. And, I was really curious considering where the Raiders were at being, you mentioned, 29-19 and 2-9 being the objective numbers here, that the Raiders are 2-9. And now, I don't know, do we still hang on to our third position in the draft? Like, I know the Titans won today. So that was, that's pretty cool considering that. So there are some, I hate to say, good things taken away from a loss when we're already projecting into next year. And I hate this idea that, I try to stay in the moment. I try to stay present. I try to stay focused on the Raiders that are, not the Raiders that aren't. And right now, the Raiders that aren't are the Raiders that are going to draft in 2025. So I try not to project too forward to start thinking about that. But it's really hard, considering the way that the season is unfolded, to not consider that idea of that now every win or loss impacts our ability to potentially draft the next franchise quarterback for this football team. So all that said, I never am going to root for the Raiders to lose. The draft will take care of itself, and I just hope that we will do well once we get to that point in the draft. But coming out of this win, like you mentioned it, Scott, there were some improved performances. But even then, I feel like I want to hedge my positivity. And you know me, I'm Mr. Positive. You're a positive guy, too. I know that you're objective on the show, but in life, you're a positive guy. I want to take away the positives of, we saw Holmes have a good game today. We saw Polamalu flash today. We saw Snowden have some great plays. We saw Max, although he didn't register on the sack sheet, really had some good plays today. So we saw some good things out of this Raiders football team. But then even on the play calling side of it, is it too little too late? Like, we finally busted out, like, the surprise pass. AJ Cole, the best quarterback for the Raiders since, Shane Leckler. You know what I mean? Like, I mean, and Shane Leckler famously hit Kevin Boss, and now we have, AJ Cole hitting Divine Diablo, which I didn't know Divine Diablo was a former wide receiver.
Yeah, I didn't either.
I'm like, why did number 5? Why was he the target on it? And then sure enough, they said on the broadcast that he was a former wide receiver, and all of us here were like, oh, well, that's fine. But anyway, so there was some cool stuff. But why weren't we doing that in week 4? Like, why wasn't that happen in week 5? Like, where's the all the ill intent, the violence, the physicality, which we heard 900 times tonight about physicality. Well, we heard about physicality going into this season from last offseason, from last season, and where's it been? And then now it finally starts to show up, during a 2-8 game at home at Allegiant Stadium against the hated Denver Donkeys. So I don't know, Scott. It's like I want to be excited. I want to feel good about it, but at the same time, it's the greatness of the Raiders is in its future. God bless Al Davis. I'll just say that.
There you go. And I'll tell you, I think you're right about that. But it's interesting because one of the things we've been discussing, and I know you guys talked a little bit about it on your show as well, which is Antonio Pierce being much more conservative from a coaching perspective throughout the season. But it seemed like today he really opened that up, to your point, on both sides. Now, of course, you got Scott Turner running the offense, and we saw some improvement there and here, but again, they couldn't run the ball. Had they been able to run the ball, perhaps Minshew could have had a better day, of course, before going out injured at the end of the game there. But I think that was a good sign that maybe it's like, well, yeah, guess what? Being conservative hasn't gotten me anywhere. We were 2-8 coming in here, 2-9, and they go back and forth. And I think I cursed them because I said, look, this is the first game the Raiders in a long time haven't been down double digits. And of course they lose by double digits, but that came at the end. So you saw some improved performance, and the defense, I mean, listen, they're going up against a hot quarterback, and Bo Nix still had a good day. Yeah. But man, that mishmash of players on the back end because of defense. I mean, DeCamerion Richardson, who got burned a couple times, had a penalty, but he played okay for a kid who's out there. And that's what you have to look for is, look, he might not be ready to start in the NFL, clearly, but you like to see some of those plays being made, and he did. And we saw some great pass rush at times from this Raiders team, which was a little bit surprising. Like you said, Maxx Crosby didn't get home, but Tyree Wilson had him a game. I mean, listen, Tyree Wilson had a really good game. Yeah. So that was encouraging. And like I said to you last week, Murph, when you're in this situation where the playoffs are out of the question, what do you look for as a fan to get excited about or to feel good about? And I think that's what it's about. It's about, where do you see improvement? Where do you see guys doing it? We saw Dylan Lobby, of course, with the nice kick return. It was unfortunate he didn't get any chances to run the ball from scrimmage, but that's okay. Sincere McCormick had a couple nice runs. Again, it wasn't enough to get that running game really unhitched. But I do think that there was a couple things to see here. It wasn't like the performance we've seen over several other weeks where you're just like, man, this is terrible. But the Raiders, they had penalties. They had 2 turnovers again, and one of them resulted in points. Now, they ended up winning by 2 scores, but when it was only 1-score game, guess what? And the Raiders really could have scored there at the end, maybe if they had better quarterback play. But I do see some positives there. Again, the loss, some people are disappointed, some people aren't because of the draft pick. And as you mentioned, I just checked Tankathon, which is where you can check the latest draft order, and the Raiders are third right now. And the good news is, if they stay third, there's only one other team ahead of them that needs a quarterback, and that, of course, is the New York Giants, because the Jacksonville Jaguars are at number 1 right now, and they have Trevor Lawrence under contract. So that from that perspective, it's good. Were you surprised, though? I mean, I thought that they would double team Brock Bowers. But Brock Bowers didn't factor much today. Michael Mayer had a nice couple catches early on. They playing that 2 tight end set quite a bit, but they could just never get both of those guys involved in the passing game enough to really make a big impact like Brock Bowers did last week, despite the loss.
Yeah, and I think Gardner missed a lot of opportunities there when it came time to go to Brock Bowers. I mean, we saw some missed throws, obviously. And it's funny, like watching the game and watching Minshew, it's like, I think that he was fairly criticized by you and Mo and by other folks in media as well, in terms of the idea that it's like, if his first couple reads aren't there, then, he hangs onto the ball too long and it results in sacks or it's a forced, throw and whatever. And when we saw it tonight, I mean, heck, the play he got hurt on, I mean, he held the ball too long. I mean, you can't hold the ball that long in the NFL, man. You just can't do it. And so, I think that impacted Bowers' ability to get involved in this offense. Now, granted, the Broncos have a really pretty, not even, gosh, I hate it. It sounds so gross coming out of my mouth, Scott. I just want to hedge everything when it comes to admitting about the Broncos, but they're a pretty damn good football team, man, and they have a pretty damn good secondary, and so I think that they did a good job of putting down the clamps on Brock Bowers and really the entirety of this passing game. We did see the running game, and so to go back to the positive side of it, The running game was great. There's a lot of Raider fans out there that have been pining for Sincere McCormick for, I think, like 5 years now. I don't even know how that guy is. He might be as old as I am, for crying out loud. Guy feels like he's been in the league for like 9 years and been on the practice squad the whole time. But anyways, but point being, though, is that he enters into a game and does pretty freaking well. Like, I mean, I think at one point in the game, they're like, he's averaging 11 yards a carry. And I'm like, holy crap. Like, that's, I mean, considering that we had two other guys that couldn't even average 3 yards a carry, to have this guy have that kind of productivity on in the running game. And then that's also indicative of a healthy offensive line, or at least an offensive line playing better. And so that was some very much positives to go in the running game. But yes, Scott, as you mentioned, deficiencies in the passing game. We saw, Jacoby Myers get involved a little bit. We saw, Brock Bowers get involved a little bit. We saw Trey Tucker get involved a little bit. Why is Trey Tucker keeping it in bounds at the end and not running out and stopping the clock when we have a chance to freaking, score late? I don't know. But anyways, point being is that, I think it's been anemic, I think is a fair term in the passing game for the majority of this, if not all of this season. And especially when you're talking about a rookie that's starting to set records, and then now we can't get him the football. So that tells me that they were, the Broncos defense was thinking, all right, well, let's let someone else beat us.
Yeah.
And the Raiders and Gardner Minshew couldn't get that figured out.
No, and you talked about Sincere McCormick, 5 carries, 33 yards, average of 6.6. And you got to question, okay, there was only five carries. So I don't know what the mix of the run. I know it was difficult for them to run the ball at times. Gardner Minshew threw the ball 42 times for 230 yards, the touchdown and the interception, a quarterback rating of 72.5 versus Bo Nix, 25 of 42, same exact completion percentage for 273 yards, 2 touchdowns. So, the quarterback play, I think to your point, that's so important. I mean, if you saw any of the 49er game earlier, they got blown out by the Packers 38-10 because they didn't have Brock Purdy and they didn't have a quarterback who could move them. And it just goes to show you how important it is to do that. And I think the Raiders offense, it's hard to kind of gauge where it is and if it's much different with Scott Turner, other than the play calling, which we can look into. And I'll have to go back when we watch the film on it. But you just couldn't get Gardner Minshew. He had moments like he always does, but he just could not consistently find receivers, even if they were open, that read. So I think that this situation, and for those of you who called for Desmond Ridder, he finally came in at the end of the game. Of course, he didn't have much a tough spot for him to come into, but I just think that it's going to be difficult for this offense to really do anything until they have some semblance of stability, meaning they know what offense they're running. They have the same play caller. They have a quarterback, even if it's a young quarterback who's going to struggle a little bit, at least you know who it is and you get used to them. And so I didn't expect the Raiders to suddenly find some big offensive game and for Gardner Minshew to come out and suddenly become a top quarterback in the league, but it's limiting. And so that's what you see. The one thing I also wanted to comment on, go ahead.
Oh, I have a question for you, Scott.
Yeah.
We saw Josh Jacobs score 3 touchdowns today. I'm sitting over there with Swag Jeff. We're watching the game, and he said, was that the biggest mistake that the Raiders have made in this offseason? And I said, I don't know. I'm going to ask Scott about that when we get on. Do you think that if with this version of Josh Jacobs, which we've seen in the past, does that free up enough pressure off of Gardner Minshew to make those plays, allow defenses to key in more on the run game, and allow guys like Jacoby Myers, yes, but guys like Brock Bowers to avoid those double teams? And maybe does that make it easier? And I know it's speculation, and it's living in the Raiders that aren't, not the Raiders that are. But was that a major oversight for the Raiders not bringing him back, considering the cap space we have?
I don't think so, because I think the record of running backs and their productivity. Now, obviously, Josh Jacobs having a fine year, but he's also on a team that's better than the Raiders. And I think that we saw him kind of fade a little bit last year, although he didn't do terribly. And Josh Jacobs is a great player. I got nothing against him. But I think from the Raiders' perspective, if you have a running back, you don't have a quarterback, the offensive line, the way it's played, the way they've been able to run the ball, part of that is that you don't have the talent at running back. Absolutely. So Jeff asking that question makes a lot of sense. But I also think it has to do with the scheme and how they're running. Josh Jacobs in Getsy's scheme, I don't think would have been a great fit either. And I'm sure he would have been frustrated by it. And I think the change of scenery
yeah.
for him, as much as it hurts to hear Raider fans say this, I think he had just gotten tired of all the crap that had gone on. And I think it was a refreshing change for him. And that's why you maybe see him. So I think if he would have remained with the Raiders, you would have had an expensive running back that might have gotten frustrated too, just like you saw with wide receivers and others. And I don't know that look, it's tough when you see a guy succeed when he was on your team last year. I get that, but I just don't think that where the Raiders were going and what they're doing, that he would have been much. I mean, yeah, would they be doing better in the running game? Of course, he's a better running back, but I just don't see it. I don't see it substantively changing where they've been offensively because of the Getsy equation and because of the quarterback situation. So that's sort of where I fall on that one.
Yeah, 10-4.
Yeah. But the one thing too, we've all been talking about, Antonio Pierce, and I saw your guys' show, you talking about that and sort of the disappointment on that. And Mo and I have talked from the objective standpoint of, look, he's just not getting it done, and it hasn't been good for a lot of different reasons. But I want to give him credit today because I thought that this coaching staff overall called a much better game, not just offense, defensive play calling, but I thought this team, despite some of the ugly penalties and failures, I thought that they did better. And I thought, again, he has not lost that locker room. There's no way he has, because these guys are playing hard. And when you're 2-8, yes, it's a division rival, it's a home game, so you should play hard. But I didn't see any quit in anybody. And I also saw what I thought was better management of the game. And again, going back to him being more aggressive, the fake punt, all these different, and some of the play calls even too. I feel like maybe he's got a one brain with Scott Turner to say, hey, look, when we need to be aggressive, let's be aggressive. Now, Minshew couldn't execute at times on that, but I thought that was very encouraging for those of you who'd like to see Antonio Pierce come back. I still don't think that happens, but if he did, I thought like today was a good step forward for him that I've been looking to see for several weeks.
Well, this is going to be me interviewing you, Scott, because I'm going to ask you, is it too little too late though? And I think that's kind of where my feeling and my energy was going with this in the start of the show and coming off at the end of this football game. It's like, where was that? And I don't understand that. Where do you go from last year executing those? It felt this game felt a lot more like last year than it did this year. I'll just say that. Yeah. And the energy and what you're talking about, as far not even just the management, but just the whole energy around philosophy, whatever. I mean, I don't know the X's and O's. I'm not in the meeting rooms in freaking Henderson. I'm not going to sit here and try to pretend to be, but just the way that the optics of it, okay, all that stuff, that was so much more similar to what it was last year. Well, why is it that when you're an interim head coach and you're coaching for your head coaching existence, are you willing to take those gambles and those big risks? But then when you get over into the regular season, you've already got the job. Why is it that you rip back the reins and you're afraid to make, or I don't want to say afraid, because he's probably not afraid of anything, but for whatever reason, there's a timidity. Is that a right word? I just made it up if it's not. But there's a timidness. There's a timid approach to the way that the game management and the play calling and whether it's going for it on fourth down, where you go for it on fourth down. Again, I go back to that fake punt, which was fantastic. Like those things. Where was that stuff, and why is it now that when you're clearly out of a playoff race, now your job is back on the line again, that, okay, now let's bust this stuff out? And I think that if I had any criticism of Antonio Pierce, and I love what that guy represents, I have all the respect for him as a person, but as a coach, I'm struggling to have a respect for him as a head coach in the National Football League. And the reason why is that where was all that? Why did it take 10 weeks, 11 weeks for that go? And I just, it's like there's all those old terms, right? Like, scared money don't make money, no risk it, no biscuit. Like you got all those kind of things. And I'm a firm believer in that kind of stuff. Like, don't let here it is, the easiest way to describe it. Don't coach and don't manage the game not to lose. Go win. What did Al Davis say? All right, we don't worry about what they're going to give us. We're going to take what we want.
Take it.
That's Raider football. And when you go watch the Lions or the Chiefs or any of the best teams in the NFL, They're not waiting around for the Miami Dolphins to make mistakes, right? That's what we heard last week. Oh, they didn't make the mistakes we thought they were going to make. Yeah, no shit. Go out and take what you want, take what you, instead of waiting around for them to give you something. And so we saw less of that today, but why did it take, Scott? Again, I ask you the question. Boy, I have a long way of asking a question. 11 weeks. What was it that took this man and this coaching staff 11 weeks to have some freaking cojones behind their decision making?
Yeah, I listen, I think it's a lack of experience. You go through and I had a discussion with somebody who was trying to argue with me that he has plenty of experience. I'm like, no, he doesn't. He wasn't an OC, he wasn't a DC, he was a linebackers coach. Yes, he was in college, but it's a different thing. So I think that, you make bad decisions when you don't necessarily surround yourself with the best people. So I think from the offensive standpoint, the Getsy hire, as we all we bemoaned it from the beginning. And I think a lot of people were skeptical, and rightfully so, and turned out to be right. So I think, I don't know why he went away from, he talked that game. And then when the season started, they didn't do it. And defensively too, because of the injuries, I think they back off because of guys. But today I thought they did a much better job being aggressive. And I do think it's too little too late, because I just don't see, again, you lost by double digits again. Like, this is not, everybody, again, I keep bringing up Dan Campbell because everybody throws his name out at me when I say that Antonio Pierce shouldn't be back for year 2 because he went 3-13. But look at some of those games. There were a couple of games they got blown out in, but the rest of them, you're talking 3 points, 2 points, 1, closer games. That shows you that you're making progress. And that's the bigger concern here, is when the Raiders would get down. Now, this time they didn't get down till late in the game, but you that's where coaching matters. Yes, the players have to perform and have to execute on the field, Murph, but at the end of the day, you've got to have the coaching staff coach them up, because that's who does. When you see mistakes and things happen over and over and over and over again in a week, then that means that they're not working on it in practice, or if they are working on it in practice, for some reason it's not being effective. So who do you look to that? You got to look at, yes, if you have positions where you have a deficient talent level, fine, but that's not every position. It happens even with positions that they do have good depth at. So to me, that's where it comes in. But it was just nice to see. I don't root for anybody to fail, right? I don't care who they are. And Antonio Pierce, clearly, because our fans want the Raiders to win, and so our listeners, and I want to make sure that they do that. I know now they're more concerned with the draft pick, but it was good to see them. It was good to see them fight and do all of that. So, all right, we're going to step aside for our break here. When we come back, we'll get back to talking this. I want to talk a little bit more about Tyree Wilson as well, because I thought he had an amazing game for him. It was good. Those are the kind of things you got to look for. So we'll do that when we come back here. It is Silver and Black today, the post-game edition. Raiders, they lose to the Denver Broncos 29-19. We are an Odyssey Sports original podcast. Also, our video brought to you by our good friends at BetUS. Don't go anywhere. All right, so I'm going to tell you guys right now, our good friends at BetUS, we got a special deal for you. That's right, a sign-up bonus. All you got to do is go over to BetUS. Check them out, 150% sign-up bonus. That's right, we're giving you free money. Woo! Free money is always nice. All you got to do is go sign up, and when you do so, they'll ask for your promo code, and you say YouTube 150. You type in YouTube 150 there, and you're going to get 150% sign-up bonus up to $2,000. Thanks to BetUS and, of course, us here at Silver and Black today. Great folks over there. Make sure you check out the website. The mobile app is great. Mo and I have been betting all of our football on BetUS this year as part of this sponsorship. And I got to tell you, they are so good. They even have live folks. If you need help with something, they're there for you. They pay out very fast. It's not like some of these websites where you go and it takes 14 hours to get your money. No, you can cash out or add money as fast as you want. And it's all good stuff at BetUS. So do that again. Use the promo code YouTube150. That's BetUS. Start playing today. All right, we are back here, Scott Gulbransen and Murf from Raiders Fan Radio. This is the Raiders post-game show live, and we are an Odyssey Sports Original podcast. Make sure you subscribe to the show wherever you get your audio. Also, make sure on video you subscribe, hit that like button, and not only that, hit that bell, that notifications bell, so you know when we go live. Also, make sure you follow Murf on X.com. That's @_Murf, MURF. Also, follow Raiders Fan Radio, both on the audio side, but also on video here, where they have a great Wednesday show, live show with Jeff and Michelle and Murf. Good stuff. Great fan show. You got to go check it out. So make sure you subscribe wherever you can find them. You can also follow me on x.com at LV Gully. The show is SNB Today. We were talking, Murph, before the break about Tyree Wilson. And I got to tell you, you keep waiting for that kid to break out. And I know some people gave up on him a long time ago, but you look what he was able to do today. He had 3 tackles and an assist. He had a sack, 11 yards, by the way, quarterback hit, and 2 tackles for losses. So Tyree Wilson, this is like, if Tyree Wilson, Murph, over these next few weeks until the season ends, starts to play more like we saw him play against Denver, that's a huge deal for this Raider team, because whoever the coaching staff is, you got Maxx Crosby, you get Christian Wilkins back next year off the injury. If Tyree Wilson is starting to play more consistent and be more of a disruptor up front, then to me, this Raider defense going into the next offseason, when you're talking about that big salary cap number that the Raiders have, that money sitting there that they can use, they certainly can use it in other spots if they feel like Tyree Wilson finishes the year off strong and can come through and be what they thought he might be. Even if it's 75, 80% of what they thought he could be, that would be a big boost for the Raiders defense going into next season.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. And, but I'm just going to drop this nugget just because it's breaking.
Yeah.
Literally breaking. Gardner Minshew out for the year, broken collarbone.
Broken collarbone. There you go.
Done. And when he hit the ground, I told Jeff, I'm like, that looked like when Rich Gannon hit the ground, when fat-ass Tony Saragusa landed on him. Of course, the defender didn't land on him, but it looked like the same kind of injury. And, yeah, it was shoulder, quarterbacks land on their shoulder, it pops collarbones. And so there you go. So he's out. But anyways, so I want to talk – we'll definitely want to talk about quarterbacks. But on your point, Tyree Wilson, very exciting to see that young man get going. There was one play in particular where he wasn't blocked on the outside, and and the haters will say, well, he wasn't blocked, and that's why he made a tackle in the backfield, against the running back. But I would tell you this, that just because he was unblocked, you still have to make the play, and it was not only. So he was unblocked, but he made the read. And I think that that's what's important for him. And we hear so many things about young players that come up to the NFL. It's an old adage about you have to get used to NFL speed. Well, it's one thing to get used to the physical speed of the NFL. You also have to get used to the mental speed of the NFL. Mm-hmm. Everything in the NFL happens so fast. And that's why coaches will tell you, like, don't think about it. Just go. Go. Like, don't sit back, because if you're thinking, then you're late, right? And you just have to be able to react and go. And so, and again, what I told Jeff, I'm like, that's film. That told me that young man had been in the room studying film, made the read, and was, even though, again, no one came over to chip him or anything else, he immediately darted in and made the play. So to have that kind of an impact from him, I totally agree with you. And considering that next year we could have a Malcolm Kuntz coming back healthy, hopefully that the Raiders will sign him back. We'll probably get him at a discount because he's coming off an injury, for crying out loud. So I mean that it will make sense on the books. It will make sense on play on the field. And if we can have young number 9 in that rotation, not only on the edge, but also inside, like going into this season, I thought that the best front four for this Raiders team was going to be Kuntz and was going to be Max on the edges, and then Christian Wilkins and Tyree Wilson lining up inside. He's a big guy. He's a big, powerful, strong guy. And as long as he's got the ability to get that offensive lineman off of, which we know he can, because he's got length, but can he do it from that inside, does he have to be wide out? Does he have to get in that wide 9 and be able to get a running start like what Max does? Or can he do it explosive off the line? I think that he can, because he's that damn strong. But anyways, point being, though, is if there's a world where he continues to improve, and that's the Raiders front four next year, that's solid, man. And then you bring in other people like Adam Butler and whoever else to rotate in. Scott, I'm with you, man. He could be. It's funny because a lot of people want to compare him to Furl.
Yeah.
F to the E to the R to the R to the E to the L to the L. It ain't Furl. It's Farrell. But anyways, a lot of people want to compare it. But that's not what we got with Cleveland Farrell. Cleveland Farrell ended up being a really decent run defender, and we've seen him have some flashes with the Niners. But let's not be a prisoner of recency and try to compare one guy to another, because they're not the same player. They're different. And Tyree Wilson is a much different player. And I think that Tyree Wilson can have an impact not only in being effective defending against the run, but can be effective in a pass rush if he's got help. And so you consider that where the defense that we've had to sustain and to still see him get better. And this is a decent Broncos offensive line. It wasn't like he was going up against a bunch of chumps today. We weren't playing the Jacksonville Jaguars today. We'll see what happens when we play the Jacksonville Jaguars. But as of today, we didn't. And so to see him have a game and to have some flashes, Scott, I'm with you. And I think it's encouraging. And so we've got one more year left. No, we have 2 more years on. No, we got 2 more years left on his rookie deal. So next year is going to be the prove it year for him. Anybody that says that we should trade him or move on for him, stop it. You don't have a player drafted that high in the first round. You don't move on from them until it's before the contract becomes either a liability or a potential. That's the end. It's not going to happen. Think about Khalil Mack. Like, that's the way that these things work out. So hopefully next year he continues to improve and this defense rights itself. And who knows what the deal, that's going to be a whole nother conversation, Scott. What's this defense going to be? We might not, probably not, should not have the same coordinator. Like, I bring in Bob Saleh. Like, that's where I'm going. That's where my brain's already going. Like, I'm already thinking about the next guy.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. You look at what happened, and we'll get into the quarterback situation in a second because that's obviously breaking news with Gardner Minshew out for the rest of the season with a broken collarbone. But yeah, I agree with you on Wilson. Although I would say that if Wilson plays good towards the end of the year, as he did today, then if the Raiders are in the position, depending where they finish, in the position where they need some capital to go move up to get the quarterback they want or something like that, I could see them trading him in that situation. But I agree with you. You don't trade him because you've given up on him. I think that he can show over the course of the rest of the season to be that guy. And then, the last game he did okay. He had a couple moments. This time he built on that and he did perform better. So I was excited to see that happen. But let's talk about the quarterback situation, because all week I had to hear people talk about Daniel Jones. And listen, yeah, I know. I don't know if people have watched Daniel Jones. It's interesting to me that people will blame other bad teams and say, no, he's just on a bad team. But then when it comes to people on their own team, they blame the player, not the team. So very interesting dichotomy there. But anyway, Daniel Jones, first of all, if Daniel Jones is going to sign with somebody, he will. I think he signs with somebody who's in a playoff situation. Raiders are not in that situation. He's not a long-term answer, I think, for the Raiders. They have to go for a young quarterback. But now with Gardner Minshew out, it's attrition. You have Desmond Ridder there, right? And so now he's going to assume, unless they go sign somebody that I'm not expecting, they're going to have to start him. So we saw Desmond Ridder today fumbled on that last play, of course, which was not great. And that's been part of his problem and why he hasn't kind of accelerated at the quarterback position when he was in Atlanta, because he had a lot of turnovers, not only interceptions, but the fumbles too. So this quarterback situation for the Raiders, I don't know, to be frank to everybody out there, I don't know that it matters much, because I don't think this offense is going to do a lot. And for those of you who want them to continue to do poor to get the high draft pick, I think you're in good shape. But it definitely is going to be interesting to see what the Raiders do and telling. I just don't see them going out to spend any significant amount of dollars to get a quarterback, because it's not like if they just had a quarterback, they would, have an opposite record. Now, would they have maybe won a game like today? Maybe, because the quarterback play at times was so bad and it matters. But if you're Tom Telesco, do you really want to do that? Or do you say, hey, you know what? Let's see what we got in Desmond Ridder. Let him go the rest of the way. And, oh, well, if it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out, and we can get rid of him at the end of the year. But to me, I think that's where they're going to be at. They're just going to go roll with what they got and see what they're able to do. If he's able to come up with a few good games, great. If he's not, then you're kind of in the same position you are now.
Scott, you probably know. And if you don't know, I'm going to shout it from the rooftops. It's Carter Bradley season. Bring in number 14. Well, my buddy.
He's the backup now.
My buddy QB Jeff was here earlier. MTSU legend, Laney College, for those of you back in Oakland, the all-time Alameda High School passing leader. Guy knows what he's talking about when it comes to quarterbacks. When him and the group of 5 guys were down at the Senior Bowl this year, he told me today in my kitchen the 3 best quarterbacks at the Senior Bowl were Michael Penix, Carter Bradley, and Bo Nix, in that particular order.
Wow.
Give me freaking why not, Scott? Is Desmond Ridder setting the world on fire? No, absolutely not. As is Antonio Pierce coaching for his career, not career, but career as a head coach currently. Yes. So I understand that he's going to make the decision, and what makes him feel like it gives him the best chance to win. But you guys laughed at me on this show, and some people laughed at me on our show, and people laugh at me online. And I said at some point, Carter Bradley's going to play a goddamn football game for your Las Vegas Raiders, and we are that much closer to it today. Because I'm telling you, like, did Desmond Ridder, like, is he delighted? I mean, like, is he like, what is? You see some of the passes that come out of his hand. He's again holds the ball too long. Yes, he can create, but when you can create and then miss a throw, well, then you're just Cam Ward. Like you know what I mean? Like there's not a lot there. So I swear to goodness, I'm not crazy. Well, I am crazy, but I swear to goodness, this is a logical thought. Like, why not have the guy that's been there since the beginning of camp, has been all the way through the entirety of the process, knows the playbook probably pretty darn well at this point? Why not? Why freaking not? Would you not put him in? And I mean, clearly, I don't see him in practice, and the coaches don't have any faith in him. But or they wouldn't have worried about go out and signing Desmond Ridder. But bottom line is that probably, Scott, you're going to get what you were just calling for. We're going to see Desmond Ridder start a football game next week, and then we're going to see Carter Bradley be the backup. And you know, if it goes horrifically wrong for Desmond Ridder, we'll probably finally see Carter Bradley, and you'll see me tweeting my face off and probably wearing my CB14 shirt on the show next week. But until then, Scott, I mean, you know what? Would you have any? Here I am asking you questions again. What do you have any faith in this or to be able to like adopt him into this offense and pull him in and put him in a position to be successful? Because clearly he's better when he's being creative, but that's not when this offense seems to click best. When guys are being creative, it's not working well, right? It's when everything is kind of staged up and scripted. That's when it seems to be its most efficient. But I don't know, man.
I mean, with Ridder there, and maybe Scott Turner will, I would have him moving more, right? You know, coming out of the pocket and on a roll and throwing that way, just to do things differently. I've seen them do that a couple times with him. But your point about Bradley too, I want to hit on, because look, my inclination is that based on past decision making, I think that Antonio Pierce will go with Ridder because he's quote unquote a veteran, and they're going to Kansas City on a short week on Black Friday to play the Chiefs. And that's a tough environment for your first start. I mean, excuse me. Yeah. So if you do that, I would understand it. At the same time, I would love Antonio Pierce to say, even if that's what he's going to do, I'd love him to say, hey, listen, we lost Gardner, so we're going to go into practice this week and have an open competition, see who wins out. I mean, why not?
Why not, man?
Like you said, the kids run the offense. And I'm not saying he's going to be some kind of savior, but to your point, you don't know what you got until you throw him out there. So I think he's going to play. I mean, Aiden O'Connell's still a ways away. So I think he'll play at some point, because like you said, if Desmond Ridder's stinking up the joint, why don't you give him some snaps and see what he can do? So either way, I think he plays. Does he start is the question. I think no this week, but you never know. I mean, hey, I didn't think that I'd see the Raiders fake a punt. I didn't see it. So with how things have gone this season. So we'll see. I mean, that to me is the situation we're in, is anything could happen. And why not? You got the kid on the roster. You've kept him on the roster. And so why not see what he's got? Now, nobody else has grabbed him off there, but again, I expect Ridder to start in Kansas City, and we'll see, because Ridder has had some really nice games as a pro. And if he can put it together in Kansas City again, that would be nice. And the Raiders maybe keep the game closer than they would if you got somebody else in there who can't. So we'll see. Yeah.
He's also had a lot of turnovers though when he was in Atlanta, Scott. And that's the thing that's what's plagued this Raider team at the quarterback position with Gardner Minshew. And I mean, you have another sports betting sponsor, so I won't shout out the one that we use and that sponsors our show. But I placed, because you don't bet, you place.
Yes.
I placed a wager, because that's not a bet. I placed a wager that Gardner Minshew would throw more than one interception today, and shout out that leg of the parlay. But I mean, but that's been the story of this Raiders football team, right? Has been that. And so, I'm with you, Scott. Like, if that's going to be, the tale of Desmond Ridder in a Raider uniform, then why not try something else? I mean, at the end of the day, like, what else you got to lose? And see, and that's the thing that goes back to that point that I was trying to make earlier, is that why wait? Like, at some point you've got to realize that it's over, right? Like, that it's done. You're not making the playoffs. You're not making there's, even in the most miraculous of circumstances, this is going to end on a bad note. The end. There's no way for this to end up, but we are going to end up with a losing record, and likely one of the best losing records in the entirety of the NFL. So why not just freaking bust it all out? If you've got it, if every club in your bag should be swung. That's, you know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
And if you don't, why not? What are you going to do? Lose?
Oh, I mean, listen, it's pretty straightforward, my friend. And so I don't disagree with you at all. Before we wrap up our show tonight, I want to make sure, we always talk about Murf and the folks at Raiders Fan Radio, both Michelle and Swag Jeff, and the great work that they do, but they also do a lot of work for charity, especially Raiders charities, through the One Nation Foundation, which anytime we get super chats here on the YouTube channel, we donate those right back to Murf and the crew. So I always have Murf tell you about it, because if you haven't heard about One Nation Foundation, what they do, you need to know, especially being a member of Raider Nation, if you want to help out those that support Raider Nation and Raider Nation supports them. It's always good to hear what he has to do. So Murf, tell everybody again about what you're doing at One Nation Foundation, how they can get involved.
Yeah, thank you, Scott. As always, my man, for the platform. We appreciate you so very, very much. Scott, for those of you that don't know, is a huge supporter of our nonprofit, which is the One Nation Foundation, and all the good folks at Silver and Black Today are such amazing partners of ours, and we could not be more thankful for this platform, for our little nonprofit that gives away money to Raiders-related charities. We give money away to various Raiders foundations, including the Bolitnikoff Foundation, the Maxx Crosby Foundation. We've given to different entities and different individuals, and also including the nonprofit Raider Dad, who I believe is getting ready to eclipse 200 kids, underprivileged kids that they have now taken to Raiders games. And it's not only the kids, it's the parental figures that are involved with those kids. And Raider Dad doesn't just get them into the game and go into the gate at Allegiant Stadium, which is the most expensive ticket in the NFL nowadays. They also provide them with a tailgate experience, depending on what sponsors are. Sometimes they'll get shoes or a jersey or, whatever. It's an incredible charity out there that's doing some incredible good. And so any of the money that we raise with Raiders Fan Radio, we give all that money away, all of our advertising dollars, all of our merch dollars, all of our direct donations, any of that stuff, we give 100% of that away. And we would never lobby for a subscription or a like or a thumbs up for Raiders Fan Radio to build our audience. But it's all about building the One Nation Foundation, and we can't do that without our platform of our show. So it's Raiders Fan Radio. So if you could check out Raiders Fan Radio on any audio podcast service, just search Raiders Fan Radio and you'll find us. We are on all the same ones Silver and Black Today is on. We are on. We're all the big ones, Scott. It's Apple Podcasts, it's Spotify, it's Pandora, it's all that stuff. Ask your internet connected device. And then, of course, we're on the YouTubes every Wednesday night, 4 p.m. Pacific, 7 p.m. Eastern, each and every Wednesday, talking about your favorite football team and mine. Except this week, we're going to be on a Tuesday night, because Wednesday night is, because Thursday is Thanksgiving. So we're going to go live on Tuesday. So anyway, so if you don't have anything else going on Tuesday night, you want to talk some Raider football, have a little fun, a little frivolity, pour yourself a cocktail and enjoy the whatever, the nonsense, I'll just call it, that happens on Raiders Fan Radio. Check us out, 4 p.m. Pacific, 7 p.m. Eastern. Again, thank you, Scott, for this platform. You don't have to do this for us, and you do it anyways, just to endorse and build up the One Nation Foundation. And brother, we can't thank you enough.
Oh, no, my pleasure to do it. And by the way, our good friend and my good friend going all the way back to high school days, I'm going to put it up here again, Pat McKemmy, who, by the way, I know we can't say anything yet, Murf, but Pat's our friend who's working on that project that we're working on, right? So Pat wants to know who you're going to draft number 1. So we got to answer Pat's question before we go.
Shedeur Sanders is my choice for the Raiders, and I talk a lot, and Scott knows. Scott's already on the button. He's like, "Here goes Murph for 10 minutes." I promise I'll keep it brief. But I firmly believe that Shedeur Sanders is going to be the most pro-ready quarterback coming into this draft. I think that the rest of the quarterbacks in this draft, including Cam Ward, and I'll fight about you on Twitter later for other people, but I think that Shedeur is going to be the most pro-ready quarterback, and I love the endorsement and the involvement of his father. Anybody that thinks it's a, quote, circus or any of that kind of stuff, go argue with the sky, because Deion Sanders is a Hall of Famer of Hall of Famers, and he doesn't play daddy ball. This is not the Mannings. This is not the Elways. The reason that Deion will lobby for the Raiders to draft Shedeur Sanders is to bring him in to revive and reinvigorize not only a team, but a fan base. And when you consider all the pieces that are involved, from Mark Davis to Tom Brady to Richard Seymour to everyone else, I think it makes a lot of sense. And the bottom line to me is this: as a Raider fan, I want more than anything for my football team, for your football team, desperately to be relevant. And we haven't been relevant since 2002. Yes, we had a decent blip on the radar in 2016 and another one in 2021, but that was not relevant heading into the season where the Raiders were considered a powerhouse in the NFL. And if you put the Shedeur Sanders on this football team with his dad's involvement, either directly or indirectly, and then you assign Tom Brady with some decision-making around this football team, this offseason could lead into finally, as The Rock would say, Raiders could be relevant in a way that's more significant than just this fan or your fan's opinion. The NFL as an entirety and the media will consider them relevant as well. And we desperately need that for this football team. Okay, was that quick enough? That was like
that was
3
good,
minutes
man.
in.
It was well said, and I actually agree with you. I think Shedeur Sanders should be the target because and the whole deal. Oh, the circus does it. It's okay. It's okay, because everybody. It's amazing to me because I do run into a lot of Raider fans who love that piece of other players, right? And what they bring, the bravado, all that stuff. And boy, and to your point, I think Deion sees the opportunity being in Vegas. Tom Brady being there, he's already tutoring. Tom Brady's already tutoring Shedeur Sanders. They talk all the time. And then you bring him in there, and what a name to get people excited about too. And you're right. I think he is a damn good quarterback. And I think that will be a good fit for the Raiders if they can get in a position to get him. Is going to be the key. That's going to be
that's the thing. And I always say this too, like that's where I try not to worry about the draft. And I would encourage Raider Nation too, like, don't worry about the draft now. Like, I mean, there's so many variables. You still got to worry about not only the way that the records are going to play out, but then you got the entirety of the offseason as well. You've got trades, you got free agency, you got so many things are going to happen. So just take it week by week. And I do want to say too, I'd be remiss if I didn't say, Pat, thank you so much. I can't wait for us to announce what we've got going on and what you've done and the work that you're doing, and in celebration of life for you know what I mean? Like, I don't want, that's not my story to tell. That's yours and Scott's, but thank you for what you all are doing. It's absolutely incredible.
That's awesome. All right, Murph. Well, listen, man, we'll see you after the Black Friday game. We'll see how.
Are we done already?
We're done already. Yeah, we're
just getting warmed up, Scott.
I love it, man. Listen, thank you as always. Appreciate you being on here and giving the fans a voice. Big deal. We love doing that. So appreciate it, man. Have a great Thanksgiving, and we'll see you afterwards.
All right, brother. Thank you so much. Can't wait for it. And let's go Raiders!
There you go. There's Murph from Raiders Fan Radio. Make sure again that you guys check out all their channels and what they're doing. It's fantastic, and you will not regret doing that. Also, give what you can give. I mean, hey, it's $1, it's $5 at the very least. If you just subscribe to their podcast, if you subscribe to the YouTube channel, that helps out significantly. So we appreciate it. And that's going to wrap up the show for this post-game. Raiders again, 29-19 losers to the Denver Broncos. Mo Moten and I will be back on Tuesday. We'll break down the game a little bit. We'll talk about the Gardner Minshew situation with now Desmond Ridder, apparently the number 1 quarterback, unless something else happens. So we'll talk about that in length on Tuesday, as well as we roll into Thanksgiving and we roll into the holiday period and the Raiders versus Chiefs. So for everybody here at Silver and Black today, including Mo, including Murph, including our producer, Mike Robbie. I want to thank you for being with us. Again, don't forget to subscribe to the show wherever you get your audio. Also, wherever you get your video, make sure you subscribe, hit that like button, and the notifications bell on YouTube so you know when we have a new live video or a new video, period. We'd appreciate that. And then again, our video always brought to you by the great people over at BetUS. Again, you get a 150% deposit bonus. Just use the code YouTube150. That's YouTube150. Up to $2,000 from our friends at BetUS. All right, everybody, have a great week this week. I know it's a short week for most of you. For those of you who work over the holidays, thank you so much for doing that. We know what a sacrifice that is. My wife comes from a service industry family, so I know what it's like. So you might be celebrating Thanksgiving on Wednesday or Friday, whatever your day's off. Enjoy that. But thank you for keeping the country running while others enjoy maybe family and dinner. But we know you'll get to yours, and I hope you do. All right. That's been it. I'm choked up now. All right, everybody, have a great week, and we will talk to you on Tuesday. This has been Silver